All right, everyone. I think we're going to get started. So again, this is John Paul. Welcome to today's webinar. I'll be the presenter today, or the host, if you will. And really what we wanted to do with this presentation is talk to customer service. There's a lot of trends out there that we've identified. We want to kind of define what good customer service is, and at the same time talk to what we've done with a lot of our clients, a lot of ISOs and agents and acquirers in this industry, how they've been able to benefit through the use of a solution that we developed to kind of help them out and help manage the business in all different aspects. So really our agenda when looking at it today is pretty straightforward, but there is a lot to sort of rip through here, so I'm going to get started. Real quick housekeeping sort of tip, if you will. If you have any questions or any comments even as well, please type them into the chat. So at the end of the call, we're not going to be unmuting the line, so we're going to be taking questions just via chat for that purpose. And the event is being recorded as well. So again, this can be shared with your colleagues, going forward. We'll make that available to you. So, looking at today's agenda, we're going to discuss kind of moving beyond the call center, what that actually means for a lot of you out there. We'll talk about what is good customer service. We'll define that. We'll look at some recent trends that we've seen here at POS Portal relative, or I should say related to customer service. And then real quickly at the end, kind of talk about how our P2 solution can help solve a lot of those challenges and bring a lot of those pieces of let's say, trends to value. So jumping right into it, you may be asking, but wait, who are you? Who are you to talk about a topic like this? So if you're not at all that familiar with POS Portal, we've been around for the last 14 years. We're not an ISO, we're not a processor, so we're super agnostic in this space. We have a few different lines of business. So in addition to P2, which we're focused on today, we have some new MPOS or tablet POS solutions. We have deployment services for some clients that we handle. We have an equipment sales channel where we work with different OEMs to kind of sell different terminals and accessories. And then we have software experience. So we have an earlier sort of iteration of a solution or a Salesforce automation solution we called P1, which is for the industry as well. And then P2, which we're talking about today, we actually went to market with in late 2011, so almost 3 years now. And overall, we have about 3 locations, or actually we do have 3 locations, one in Louisville, Kentucky, and 2 here on the West Coast in Sacramento, where we're headquartered. And related to P2, the solution's been really well validated over the past couple of years. We have about 120 active ISOs and acquirers on the solution today. And 300+ thousand merchants are managed. There's about 3,000 to 4,000 salespeople that use the solution daily. And relative to our conversation today, hundreds of customer service folks as well that have access to a solution like this and are sort of using it to solve a lot of their merchants' problems and help them out with different things. So we can certainly talk more about P2 going forward, but really what we wanted to focus on was this. So does everyone remember this? The words call center really first developed meaning in the 1980s. So when consumers had an issue, their only option was to pick up the phone. And really in response to this, many companies implemented these call centers where anywhere from 2,000 to 20,000 people in some cases basically sat in a room, answered the phone, and dealt with these different customer service issues. So really, not a whole lot has changed. There's certainly call centers, large ones that still exist out there. Many may look like this today, a bit more modern in terms of technology, maybe no cubicles, a bit more open in terms of the floor plan. But really with the arrival of the internet, call centers then evolved into these contact centers as customers now had email as an option to air their requests and complaints. And in more recent years, a lot of social channels like Twitter and Facebook have become another option for customers to use to get support, as well as many online forums and communities. So, when we think about this industry, what does this evolution mean for small businesses, say an ISO? So, typically even larger acquirers or processors in this industry, many of them don't have the luxury of 20,000 dedicated support reps. And, some companies, many that we talk to daily, often have as little as 2 people who answer customer service requests over all the different possible channels. But still, many comparatively smaller merchant acquirers should really view customer service as a key differentiator for a company of their size. And they should in no way feel that they are at a disadvantage when it comes to offering great service if they don't have these big call centers in place. And really the reasons why are that Many of these companies are typically not locked into these expensive and outdated legacy systems. These companies are typically more focused on delivering exceptional service, as that's what's going to set them apart when they're dealing with their merchants. And a lot of these companies can be agile in implementing a customer service experience strategy. So there's a lot quicker path to sort of turn on a dime and change things up where they don't work. So the good news is, with the help of technology, there are now many ways for them, ISOs, acquirers, to handle these requests outside of the traditional call or contact center. And, before we look at some customer service trends and share how we're helping a lot of our clients today, let's actually define, like we talked about earlier, what good customer service actually is. So, we all know that good customer service is crucial, but once you get down to trying to define what goes into it, not everyone's on the same page. So to some, good customer service is as simple as solving problems and offering solutions in a timely manner. To others, it means overall politeness from those who represent the front lines of the company. Others define it as, when a company is willing to give their customers anything and everything that they want. I'm sure you have all experienced this. The customer is always right approach, no matter how unreasonable some of those demands may be. So, there isn't really a right or a wrong, because the factors of what customer service, or I should say what makes customer service good, it also depends heavily upon what specific things a particular customer may hold valuable. And that, obviously, is different than person to person. So while there are certainly customer service basics you should be covering, there are 4 common touch points that can help form a structure around defining what good customer service looks like. And while these factors may seem simple, actually implementing them in your business may take more strategy, time, and effort to achieve a truly satisfying customer experience. So the first of these 4 sort of pillars, if you will, is really, don't make your customers wait. Patience certainly a virtue, but don't depend on it when interacting with your customers. And there was a survey conducted where 69% of those interviewed, they defined good customer service as receiving a quick resolution to a reported problem. And on the other hand, 72% of respondents blame their frustrations on having to address an issue to multiple employees at different times. So, we've all been there. We know how frustrating it can be to call back or really just to be transferred only to re-explain your problem over and over again, all the while not getting any closer to a solution. Customer service representatives who have neither the authority nor the ability to resolve problems on their own, they really run the risk of alienating a lot of these customers. And unfortunately, this is a common problem. And going back to that research, in fact, 26% actually of consumers have experienced being transferred from agent to agent without any resolution. And the reason that this first point is so important is that looking at the research, what they identified is that the failure to respond properly to customers can negatively impact a business's bottom line for many years to come. So according to that same survey, only a quarter of respondents said they would continue to seek out a vendor 2 years or longer after a bad experience, while 39% said they would avoid vendors for longer than 2 years. So it kind of, where you rub them the wrong way once, that's going to affect you guys going forward for a long period of time. So overall, just to kind of conclude on this point, to avoid damaging lulls in service, make sure that the employees that will be working most closely with your customers actually have the authorization and training to offer solutions when issues do arise. So number 2, provide transparency. Before or after you sell products or services to a merchant who's really your customer, can they easily access information about delivery timeframes, fees, pricing, or the service itself? And if the answer is no, you may want to rethink some of those items. So, what we've identified on this end is, when it comes to providing information, it's always better to err on the side of caution. Providing a clear FAQ or frequently asked questions page is a start, but a lot of the most successful companies take it further by offering guidance and direction along the way, and making sure not to hide any pertinent information that the customer may find useful. And at the same time, we see this a lot in this industry especially, don't expect customers to read fine print. Any important data should be shared up front. If there's transparency throughout the transaction, you'll obviously minimize any surprises on both ends, which is extremely helpful. Number 3, help them help you. So, in the age of e-commerce, and I'm sure many of you have a website that a lot of your prospects and merchants go to today, many companies make the mistake of letting these online web browsers or shoppers really fend for themselves, relying on a lot of these self-service type resources. And, although it is true that today's buyers are more independent, not everyone is equally tech savvy or always in the mood to put their quote-unquote self-sufficiency skills to work. Sometimes your customers don't want to figure it out and just want an answer by asking someone directly. So, even where you don't sell anything online, most customers at some point do prefer that human interaction so they can get straight to the point or complete the transaction. And whether that's speaking to an agent in person or online or over an email for maybe issues that aren't as urgent. So, certainly as the left side of the slide here shows that image, make sure that you're meeting your customers' needs with the support that they expect. Live chat is certainly best, but if this isn't an option, be sure to at least provide an easy access link for email questions, a 24/7 toll-free number posted prominently on every page just so folks can reach out to you. And finally, the fourth pillar is, trust. So building trust, and ideally they're going to come back from there. So, if your company isn't answering, or I should say, if your company is answering a phone by the first ring, it's straightforward with all pertinent buying information and is giving customers a personalized experience when they need it, then really, hats off to you, congratulations, you're building a lot of this much-needed trust. And this is really the final piece of the puzzle, but it is the most important. Your product or service will attract them initially, maybe even bring them back a second time, but what consistently entices customers to return is trust that they're going to have a good, barrierless customer experience. That's extremely important. If you can provide the customers what they're looking for when they need it and expect it, then that trust built between your company and the customer will evolve into this sort of invaluable customer loyalty for the lifetime of that relationship. So for us at POS Portal, we've worked with hundreds of agents and ISOs and acquirers across our multiple lines of business. We've certainly seen how many of them operate and what leads some to be more successful than the others. And I think we would all agree that, with us now on this quote-unquote age of the customer, buyers, which are really your merchants, are more empowered than ever before, and as a result are demanding a new level of customer service. So here are 6 trends that we've identified that relate to customer service and how a lot of ISOs and acquirers can improve the experience of their merchants. So right off the bat, understand that your customers, they really expect this effortless service. So there was another stat that said 52% of consumers will abandon online browsing and purchases if they can't find a quick answer. In addition, customers want to be able to interact over a range of communication channels during that same interaction. So that could include the phone, email, live chat, social media, and sometimes even mobile or SMS messaging. So they want to quickly send a text message to someone on your team possibly. So again, really make that process as straightforward, simple as you can for the customer. Number 2, rely on outbound communications to keep your customers in the loop. So there's really several benefits to this approach, and this is, again, compared to a lot of inbound communication. So first, there are savings just on the carrier cost as a result of less calls, fewer incoming lines, and reduced long-distance charges. That's kind of right off the bat. Second, there's lower costs for fewer agents being needed and smaller overhead, training, and even recruitment costs. And really the third benefit is really less infrastructure because of fewer space requirements due to the smaller support staff. And we'll highlight later on today how P2 can help with this specific trend in terms of this outbound communication going out to salespeople, merchants, etc. Number 3, the trend that we've seen is really delivering consistent knowledge strategy across all different touch points. So whether a customer is reaching out through search, email, phone, your website, some other self-service model, live chat, or any other channel, there really needs to be context around their experience, and your agents need to be empowered to offer this personalized and engaging service. So really all that means is that if they're going to be touching multiple members of your team through multiple channels, there's value in having this central sort of database, if you will, of where all these different touch points have kind of come into and all the members of the team that they've actually spoken with. Number 4, use decisioning to power offers, actions, and connections. So really this trend aims to accomplish some sort of predictive customer service by really understanding customers, their behavior, and knowing what upsell and cross-sell opportunities would benefit them. Giving that work at that point to the right person on your team and really guiding the customer service experience and connecting them to the right, customer service agent even. So it's part predictive, it's part understanding what they've done in the past, and this industry especially, there's a lot of different products, a lot of different services that you're likely to sell to that same merchant. And at the same time, a lot of different, moments in the past when they're going to be reaching out to you and asking different things or just sharing different sort of feedback with your team. So it's important to not only have that information, but sort of be able to track all that and, understand where they need to go from here and use that to kind of drive the behavior. Two more here. So the number 5 is really listening to your customers and acting on their insights. So this is probably pretty straightforward for a lot of you on the call today, but you really want to collect data on what customers are saying on really various channels, including email, over the phone, on the web, different forums, and especially social media. And at that point, your service managers can then use this data to get insights into how the customer service process can be improved and pass that directly on to the agents. So I'm sure many of you today have, you're on Twitter, you're on Facebook, you're on some other social channel for your company. So to provide tools back to your actual customer service team so that they can then monitor what your actual merchants are saying on these different channels, and then kind of not only listen but then act on some of that insight, that it certainly leads to a much better experience for both parties. And finally, number 6 is really just the fact that cloud deployments are increasing, and the reason being, especially from a customer service perspective, is that they increase this business agility. So there's a group out there called the Business Technographic Software Survey, and last year, 2013 Q4, they found that 15% of companies have already replaced all or most of their customer service and support, teams essentially, or software, with software as a service. So that's a SaaS solution where you're kind of paying incrementally month to month based on the value you're getting out of the technology. 17% plan to do the same within 2 years, while 24% are using some SaaS technology to implement, or I should say not implement, but complement other methods. So that could be sales, back office, some other function in the business. And meanwhile, 14% of those that were polled, they do plan to add some SaaS tools within 2 years. So there's certainly this trend that we've seen in terms of more and more organizations, regardless of just customer service, moving to the cloud, moving to a much more agile solution that can allow them to kind of change quickly as the business evolves or they grow out the organization, and other kind of aspects change. So I think where we're going to go from here, let me just go over to this. We might have had one more slide real quick. Yeah, sorry. So we're going to dive into P2, and we're going to provide a really brief demonstration, really focused on customer service. And before we do that, really when we think about the core value of P2, customer service is certainly part of that. In addition to reporting and kind of managing leads and the routing of that to your sales team and automating the sales process, and then that sort of back office workflow, if you will, in terms of moving paper or moving applications around and getting them obviously boarded or processed. So, we're going to dive into P2, specifically looking at this red area, this customer service. We have 3 different use cases we're going to go through, but yeah, let's jump into the demonstration. And again, if you have any questions while we're going through a lot of this, please feel free just to chime in, let me know. And yeah, let's get started here. So, when we think about P2 and customer service, and again, we're not going to probably go through or have time to go through everything in terms of what we're looking at here, but really this is our P2 solution. So at a super high level, we built this really purposely on the Salesforce platform. So Salesforce, they're really a global leader in CRM. They've extended the solution to partners like POS Portal to develop different software applications for many different industries. So what we did in late 2011 was went to market with P2 and made it available specifically to this industry. But when we think about what we're looking at here, there's a few things. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on all of them, but really right off the bat, this P2 inbox is just a quick way to navigate to key information. So whether that's merchants, deals, which are really going to be your sales-related opportunities, tickets, which we'll probably talk a good bit about today, customer service and tickets, cases, and then agents and partners. So you can actually index those different relationships down here. So again, the value in having this P2 inbox and even these quick links on top is that it's really simple to kind of jump into the solution and figure out what to do, how to get to certain information outside of just searching for it. If you need to quickly open a new ticket or create a new merchant record or view some dashboards, there's a really quick path to do that. So regardless as to whether or not your team is all that familiar with CRM technology, which is in many cases pretty commonplace for salespeople, sales managers. where you do have a lot of your support team, customer service folks involved with it, there's a really quick path to figure that out. And we also provide a lot of training, and there's different how-to videos that walk through the users of different aspects of the solution. So let's just go through a very quick example just to get you a record. And let's just say that, I mean, it could be anybody, but let's just say that Mary from, it's been really hot here in Sacramento recently, so let's say Mary from some local tanning salon actually reached out to us and had an issue with something. And we'll kind of go into those examples in a second. So let's see. So Mary is with Golden Sun Tanning. So let's just say, she picks up the phone and says, hey, it's Mary from Golden Sun Tanning. I had an issue with something. We'll go through the three scenarios in a moment here. So we can quickly do a search here in P2, and this is very common for a lot of our clients that have customer service folks interacting with it. They receive a call, they get an email, something, someone reaches out to them through some channel, then they come in here and do a quick search for the merchant. Once they're actually on the record itself, there's a lot of stuff going on here, a lot of value as well. So, when we think about just a merchant record, there can be really a lot on here. Right off the bat, this is all configurable by a lot of our clients. They can tweak up what the experience looks like, how many fields are displayed, what the sections look like as well. But, when we look at this, there's everything from a lot of the demographic data, the website, the MID, the status. They're an active merchant, as we can see. Who all the people are, so we know who the salesperson is, which is Ben Davis. We know who the sales manager is on this deal. We know who actually referred the deal, with Sacramento Bank. We know who the primary contact is, all the address information, residual level information, all the notes, contacts. The deals themselves, these are actually going to be where you manage the individual products or services that have been sold. So going back to that example of identifying different cross-sell and upsell opportunities, one thing that we've done specifically with P2 is created this idea of a deal record, which allows a lot of our ISOs and clients that we work with to individually track these different sales cycles and processes. So there's value in certainly doing that. So we can see all that. We can see the activity history, which basically means the last time that they had reached out to your team, and who logged that call, and it could be anything else outside of a call too. Maybe it was an email that went out to the merchant. We can see all the attachments, and then the tickets, which we're going to show an example of in a second. And really, if we scroll down a little bit further, there's this concept of deployment orders, so we can talk about that on a future call for those that are interested. But P2 can also accommodate having your deployment needs sort of fulfilled, if you will, directly from within the solution. And then finally, the terminals. So obviously relevant to this industry, which terminals have been deployed there at that merchant. So let's just go through three scenarios, and I'm going to show you kind of how P2 can help accommodate many of these. And real quick, before we do that, one other thing I wanted to show is the fact that there's certainly as well these sort of social media connectors. So how this really works is you would go in and you would plug in your credentials, across Twitter and Facebook, YouTube, and then even LinkedIn for individual people or contacts. And once you do that, you can search that record for that specific business or merchant. So in this case, we found Golden Sun Tanning. We can go to their Facebook profile. We can see real quickly, what the comments or what the concerns might have been, or what they've recently shared out with the world, and we can use that data to be really hopefully more helpful. Maybe identify some other opportunities to sell to that merchant, or just better the experience overall. So there's a quick way to tie into those channels. So let's go down to creating a new ticket. So let's go through scenario one. So I put together these three scenarios. So the first scenario is merchant calls in and basically says, I need to know how to batch out my terminal at the end of the night. Maybe they're a new merchant. They've been working with you for the last week or two. They haven't been paid yet, and they're saying, hey, or let's say the conclusion your team is coming to is that they need to really just figure out how to batch out successfully the terminal. So in that case, it probably wouldn't make sense to create an actual ticket for that merchant. So one thing that we would see is someone on your team, a customer service person, they'd be in the system, they would navigate to this record, and there's a couple paths. They can simply create a note or an activity, essentially. They could create a note as well. So they could say the merchant had called in, they were wondering how to batch out the terminal. I walked them through the process. We successfully got that resolved. All is well. Merchant had a great experience. And if nothing else, just make a note of that on the record. So, we can do that really quickly here just to show the example. But let's say Sally called in and batch issue. Whatever the specific details are, you can obviously add a lot more there. But, this will be assigned to the portal admin or the name of that user that's logged in, and we could also tie it back to the contact, depending on who we actually spoke with there at the merchant. But, if nothing else, again, the merchant calls in. We're not really having to create a ticket or a case because we're resolving it on that first call, because that makes the most sense in this example, and we can immediately resolve the issue. So if nothing else, if we scroll down, someone on your team will know that, John Paul or Sally or somebody on your team had spoken to that merchant and they logged that respective issue. And going forward, you can click into that and you can see the details of that specific sort of customer interaction. Scenario 2 is a little bit more involved. So merchant calls in, they say, hey, I signed up to accept Visa and Discover, but I'm unable to accept Discover. So in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to create a ticket. And this is actually then going to be assigned or claimed by a customer service rep. And this person may then call the processor. They may just make sure the file's been set up correctly. They may make sure that it's on their application and get back to them. But ultimately, someone's going to have to reprogram the terminal. So they may close out the ticket, schedule the call, or on-site appointment with the merchant, and then walk them through the process over the phone, or even send somebody out on site. But if nothing else, as we'll show in a second, where the value with P2 is that we're letting the salesperson and the sales manager, other folks as well that need to know what's going on with that merchant, we're keeping them in the loop with what's been going on. So really how that would work is you would come in here, and again, someone calls in, they have that same question that we just looked at, and you basically click this new ticket button. Here you can see that we can set really the person requesting support, which in this case we know it's a merchant. We know who the merchant is because we're accessing it from the record. And we can also then pick out a reason list. So these reasons can be configured and changed by your team. It's really straightforward. And when I say by your team, I mean by someone who's initially kind of working with us to get everything set up and dialed in, and then that administrator figure going forward. But let's just say that they call in and we know that it's going to have to be reprogrammed, so we'll just designate that as a reason right now. Let's say the severity is critical. And then, let's see, signed up for Visa, Discover, need Discover. So you can then put in all the details here. I'm not going to write a lot out. I'm just going to put details, ... But you can put in any specific reasons, like, hey, Sally at the merchant reached out to us and had an issue and whatever the specifics were. You can also set the origin. So if they came in via the phone, email, the web, you can certainly track all that so you can understand kind of where most of your merchants are reaching out to you through which channels. And once we actually save that, what it's going to do is it's going to create a ticket in P2, and it's going to be associated with the really the submitted, it's going to be associated with the severity of critical, but right now it's actually in this submitted queue, so it's not yet been opened. So when we look at this, there's quite a few pieces going on here. So right off the bat, we see on the very top that this has not yet been claimed. So someone on your team, again, imagine they talk to someone on your team, but maybe that person that picks up the phone call, maybe they're not the best person to address that issue, or maybe that merchant had talked to, I don't know, John yesterday or maybe last week, and John's the actual agent that has been working with that merchant to resolve all their issues. So someone on your end would have the ability to, assign the merchant to someone else, to some other customer support agent, or they can directly claim it. And either way, what's going to happen when someone claims this is, first off, it's going to drop in the photo and the name of that person who's now claimed it, so we know that someone's actively working on it. It's also changed the status from submitted to open. So now we have this open and critical ticket, so it's actually in this bucket here on the left-hand side. And we're also tracking the business hours, or how quickly this ticket is being sort of pushed through the process. So we'll look at an example of this report later on in the call, but really from just a data perspective, you guys can quickly identify, how quickly these tickets are being claimed and resolved, and you have all those metrics to go by. So the other valuable piece here, I should say, is the fact that this ticket, as it's being pushed through the process, is really these notifications are being sent out to different folks. So I just put my own email here for the primary merchant email, or the merchant primary email. But you can also add an additional email. So if, let's say, the spouse of the merchant reached out to you, or the general manager of the store, or the restaurant, whoever it is, you can also have that person included here. So as this ticket's being opened, as it's being closed, those folks are being notified. So in our example, just what we were talking about, because there's a reprogramming involved, and that obviously requires the attention of the merchant who reached out to us. Either we're walking them through it over the phone, or we're sending someone out on site. There's not really a whole lot of value in saying, hey, this has now been closed, Mr. Merchant or Mrs. Merchant. So, if nothing else, in this scenario here, what I was mentioning is that there's going to be certainly value in letting the salesperson know and doing that in a very automated fashion. So, for Ben Davis, the sales manager or the salesperson, he might be out, selling to new merchants or working with other customers or doing something out in the field or in the office, and just to be notified in real time that, hey, this merchant that you signed last week, Golden Sun Tanning, they have an issue, and they supposedly signed up for Visa and Discover, but they now need Discover as well. It's not working correctly. So just to have that email going out to Ben, and not have someone on your team have to pick up the phone, let him know, or send out an email manually. It's just that kind of common courtesy that P2 fully automates. And it kind of goes back to that outbound communication, making that a lot easier for not only Ben, but the sales manager as well, who might see value in kind of knowing what's going on with different merchants that they've been working with. So real quick, before we go on to scenario 3 and how it's a little bit different, there's a lot of other things on here as well. So we can be logging our calls, anything that relates to this ticket. We could be sending emails, and these emails will be actually going directly to the merchant. We could be attaching different items, so if there's any attachments that make sense. So if we go and, let's say, we look at the application and we find a discrepancy where the checkbox for Discover wasn't filled in, maybe we highlight that and then come in here and attach that to this ticket just to make note of it. We can create notes. We can create tasks for ourselves. So maybe we speak to that merchant on that first call. We go off and talk to our team, and then we created a task for ourselves to get back to Sally by tomorrow at 10 a.m. So we have that reminder there. So when we log into P2 tomorrow, if nothing else, we don't forget to close out this ticket and resolve it, move on, essentially. So you can also do that. So again, this is an example where we have, again, a ticket. There's certainly value in closing this out, moving it through the process, but the final step likely involves us working directly with the merchant to resolve it. So in terms of letting them know how it's been resolved, probably not that valuable, but let's go through scenario 3. And we can see now that we closed this out. So it says the ticket's been closed. It actually shows the time to complete. So it said that we took 0.06 business hours. So you're able to set the actual business hours for your operation sort of in the background. So scenario 3 is a little bit different. So scenario 3, customer calls in, and maybe they're a new customer, maybe they're not, but they basically say, hey, when I ordered my terminal, I spoke to so-and-so on your team, and I was told that I'd have my overnight shipping waived. Let's say, I don't know, it was $27, and that was actually charged to my account, so I needed credit. So basically, I needed credit. They were overcharged, or someone said they could get something, for free, essentially. So in this case, what would likely happen is, again, someone on your team, where it makes sense, they receive that call. They can quickly identify and look at, any details that may make sense to be helpful, but in many cases, they're going to create a ticket still, and let's just say in this case that it is related to billing. Let's just say statement or billing question. And the severity is not as crucial. Let's actually say, medium. So we'll say Joe needs $27 overnight shipping credit. And again, we can put all the details below. And really where the value with those emails that go out are is that not only the subject of the ticket, but a lot of the details, those can also be sent out via email. So, where someone on your team does resolve something, as we'll show in a second, those emails can be pushed out with that context as well already there in the email. And let's just say that Joe came in via email. So again, we're creating another ticket, totally different example here, but in this case, what we're going to do is pretty similar. So we're either going to assign it or claim it. But as this issue can't immediately be resolved, we're going to create a ticket. It's going to be assigned or claimed by a rep, And that person may then go talk to accounting. They may look into what happened and ultimately issue a credit. And the specifics of the credit back, they can all be included in the ticket details and closed out. And as these updates are occurring, these emails are automatically being sent to the merchant, as we talked about. So when the issue is finally resolved, no one has to reach out to them in a separate email or call the merchant, just to simply let them know that their credit has been processed. So again, what that would look like really quickly here, not to spend too much time on it, but someone goes in, they claim it, they're then working through the issue. Again, they could be making notes like, hey, I spoke to so-and-so in accounting. Again, all these folks down below, and you could override these, but all these people would be getting notified via email that, hey, there's something going on with the ticket, we're resolving it. And ultimately, we'll just say credit resolved specifics, whatever those details are. You can go and you can put all the details here in the body of the email, and then ultimately close this out. I'm just going to save it real quick. But when you close that out, that's actually going to send an email out to, again, all these members of your team. And obviously, since the merchant's on here, they're also going to receive that email. And at that point, they know that their issue's been successfully resolved, and it's been done super quick in 0.01 business hours in this case. So yeah, so that should hopefully provide 3 different sort of scenarios. Again, the value is not only the emails going out, but having this sort of single location where these tickets can be managed. And again, there's these sort of ticket queues on the left-hand side, which I'll go into real quickly here. So, at a glance, we can quickly see the merchants that have reached out to us and what the status of a ticket might be, what the severity is, and then create a date as well. And then you can easily jump into different categories. So if we want to see all of our open critical tickets, because we need to be resolving those issues because they are critical in nature, we can quickly dive in there and see all the specifics about those tickets. So finally, when we look at reporting, there really is a lot you can do. So one big benefit of us working on top of the Salesforce platform is really that reporting sort of framework or foundation. So anything that you have from a data perspective in the system, you can then run reports against that. And real quick, there are really a variety of reports that sort of come out of the box with P2. But when we think about these reports, a lot of our clients are fully empowered to go in and change these and tweak them and create new reports themselves. We provide training on that. You can also have these reports be scheduled to be sent out. So if, let's say, you have either sales or your application processing or customer support or service metrics that you want to be sent out to your management, your CEO, someone on your team, whoever makes sense, so that when they're at home, before they go into work or hop on the road, they're drinking their morning coffee and they get, a pulse of the company right there in the palm of their hand on their mobile device. That's extremely powerful and helpful for a lot of folks. So that can certainly be done. But really what a dashboard is, how this is different, is that a dashboard is up to 9 different of these reports. So you can create these dashboards, and really how they function is to be set up pretty uniquely for a lot of our clients, but you can see that these dashboards show quite a few number of things, and in this case, related to customer support, we see things like who's actually requesting support, what the actual ticket severity is, how many tickets have been closed and when the date was, how many tickets have been opened monthly, or actually that month in terms of new support tickets, and then the average time to both close and claim a ticket. So we're tracking all this information. There's value in doing that, but at the same time, we can then look at these very detailed reports. We can click into any one of these reports and really see a breakdown of how that looks. From there, you can put this into an email and share with your team, or you can get it out to other users in the system really quickly to just better understand how the team's been performing and where the gaps might be to better improve the customer service experience. So I think from a software demonstration standpoint, I know we wanted to keep this really to the point and specific. We're probably going to wrap up P2, the demo, if you will, on that note. But we did just want to kind of finally recap and just say that, I think not everyone is going to agree on what it is exactly that makes up good customer service. But, bad customer service isn't quite as hard to define, because while specific service standards vary based on your company, obviously this industry, payments, merchant acquiring, and expectations, you can certainly bet that customers would recognize bad customer service when it happens to them. So that's why a lot of these websites like BBB and even Yelp and a lot of these resources, why they're popular, is because people are constantly looking for feedback on others and what their experience has been. And perhaps most important of all is to recognize that good customer service really encompasses any interaction. So it's not just what we've been talking about today. So that can include online, offline, really that a customer or even a potential customer may have with your company. And it includes the entire experience from the initial contact to the final sale and then beyond. So really, be sure to do everything in your power to keep your customers informed and on the move and above all happy. And if your company is responsive and they're friendly and provides timely, relevant information when the customer needs it, you'll certainly build a reputation for this consistently, good service and extremely high loyalty from a lot of those that you work with.